Sunday morning drama is calling up my mama.
Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama. It's calling up my mama. Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama.
It is I, the one, the only AG, the dad. I'm here with Shit Talking Sundays, with Shit Talking with Sensible Chery. And, today is such an important day because we're fighting for children's rights. And anytime we fight for children's rights, it's an important day. And that's why every day is Shit Talking Sundays, because just because you don't hear me or Sensible Chery talking some shit about the rights that are be trampled on by our children, the route that and direction that our children are going in, speak up, because every day should be a day you have something to say to make sure that our children, all their voices are being heard. So without further ado, let's get down to business. It's the one, the only Sensible Chery. How are you?
Amen to that intro. We need strong voices for our kids. And that's why I'm excited about today's episode, because we are going to add another strong voice onto this podcast.
I am
when
very
it comes
excited.
to protecting the rights of our when it comes to protecting the rights of our kids, my voice has just continued to get stronger. And I met someone over a year ago now with all this craziness in the schools. And she has been an absolute huge voice for our kids and standing up for their rights when they have not been heard. And it's supposed to be the adults that are supposed to be looking out for them, and that hasn't been happening. And she is someone who I know will continue to stand up for our kids and make sure that they are heard and not left behind.
It's all good. It's all good. You know what? For some reason, AG, the dad, AG can stand for whatever it needs to be. All good, always going, whatever. Fight for the rights for our children, instead of, all lives or Black lives, children's lives. Children's are our future. But anyway, let's introduce our guest. she her name says it all. Common sense. Okay? Common sense. Like Sensible Chery, this is common sense radical. Hey, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed. Anytime I can put people together that are going to fight for the rights of just humans, even though the humans we happen to be fighting for are from the ages of before birth all the way up to death, really, but 18 years of age. I think we got to keep doing this because we're starting to be heard. That's the good thing. We're starting to be heard. They say that the squeaky wheel is always the one that gets the attention. So I had to bring some common sense to a sensible situation.
I wish more
So,
people would apply common sense and logic to things, but apparently they just it's a much harder concept for a lot
you
of other
know,
people.
I
um,
was told a long time ago that common sense is not that common.
it's not. Most things that are stated in their names are a little bit exaggerated in most cases. Kind of like when a person walks in the room and say, "I'm the best. I'm the best Casanova in the room." Usually he's not. So, he who talks the most sometimes really is not talking about shit. But here on Shit Talking Sundays, we talk about things that are very, very, very important. So, man, let's get to the meat of things. I really like sitting here, spending time to get to know you, but I think you are probably going to be somebody that I'm going to be chit chatting with a lot in the future. So, uh, let's just jump right in and we'll get to know each other over the next lifetime.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, Sensible Sherry, what is it that we want to discuss today?
Well, today we have quite the election coming up in November for governor. And one of the big things when it comes to our kids is that the governor is also the superintendent of schools. And so we have three candidates that are running right now. And it's going to be important that whoever you vote for, that you vote for who you truly believe is going to do what is best and in the best interest of our kids and our state. So
Mm.
there's so many topics, even though I have definitely been focused on education. It is a core one for me. There are so many other topics, homelessness, so many.
We're going to get to those too. We're going to get
Yeah.
to every single topic because there is a solution for every problem. It's just who's willing to work hard enough at solving it. You
Or
know,
listen.
we could
Or
talk
even just
about it,
listening.
but sometimes somebody needs to be about it, and it takes money to be about it. And just letting anybody out there that hears this, I mean, because I know there's got to be somebody out there that's got money that they wipe their butt with after they take a shit talking Sunday. So I'm gonna tell you, if you got it like that, man, send in a donation and watch change happen. You want to anonymously make change happen? Well, put some common sense to a sensible situation. I guarantee you, AG the dad is going to help make something sensible happen. But before we get into all this politics stuff, let's stay on track because she is absolutely right. The governor's race is very, very important.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you have
Yes,
an idea who you want? Common sense radical?
You know,
I'm intrigued.
I'm anyone but Tina. Literally anyone. I'd rather vote my toe in. Like my dog, anyone but Tina Kotek.
Okay, and why?
She's too far. She's too extreme to the left. And when I say that, I'm saying that as a lifelong Democrat, too far left. She does not equally represent most people. In fact, she's given zero consideration for anyone in the middle, even left of the middle, or anyone further right from there. She's also been in office, and she's been the Speaker of the House for at least 10 years? Speaker of the House, I believe. And she's been in office for like 15 years or more. and she's literally been like the driving force in this state
Okay.
to make she's had power, and she's done things that have made things far worse. So why would I want her to be sitting in that position? I do not. She needs to just go retire somewhere far, far away.
So right now, would you say that she is probably, I mean, is she the favorite to win?
It's a split.
Okay.
Yeah, haunt Chery. It's a split thing. It's
Absolutely.
All right,
ordinarily in this state, yeah, we're pretty blue, but a lot of people are pissed. A lot of people are fed up.
Okay, Sensible
Well,
Chery.
and we have a unique situation with this election because we have our Democrat candidate of Kotek, and then we have our Republican, which is Christine Drazen. But we now have Betsy Johnson, who is running unaffiliated, non-affiliated, I should say. There's been a lot of crossover with it being independent, but she's not actually the independent party. She's running non-affiliated. So she has been a lifelong Democrat. But no, I can't say that because she was a Republican. At one time, she was a Republican. Then she was a Democrat. And now she's tired of the far left and the far right. And so here she is. I am still on the fence as of this moment in time, though I would say that I am probably leaning towards Betsy Johnson at this moment in time, but I have not done my due diligence in regards to understanding the race. And I know that I would get backlash from people because we have a whole lot of people that it's like, oh, you must vote your party. And I've been a registered Republican for a long time. And personally, I am so sick of vote your party. I want to vote for somebody who's actually going to do what they say, is actually going to make some kind of improvement. The idea of just voting for a party because you are that party, I'm just fed up with that.
You know, it's funny you say that. You know what would shake up the game is if we no longer registered as a Republican, Democrat, Independent. We just are registered voters. So now nobody can go, oh, we have X amount of registered Republicans, X amount of registered Democrats. You can go based on what you think people are now. But now when you speak, you better speak to the masses because you never know who is registered to who. And when you throw an event, yeah, you can base it on geological location, and people, you know, will probably be able to at least guesstimate on who they think would lean this way or that way. But over time, people's views, just like Sensible Chery, just because she's a registered Republican doesn't mean she's going to vote Democrat. Just like me, I'm a registered Democrat. But I have voted Republican in the past. Okay. I'm not saying that I have voted Republican in the recent past, but I will say that I have voted Republican. So I strongly agree with you, Sensible Chery, that you should vote for who you think is the best candidate for that is right for you and your family, if that's all you care about. But if you think who is the best for you, your family, and this nation, then that's where the devotion for me, where I can see the devotion. Because if you truly vote for the candidate that's going to help your village, let's just call it village, because they say it takes a village to raise a child. So if you vote for the person that's going to help your village, then I'm all for that. But if you're just voting for who has had money put in their pockets to say the things to make things sound a certain way, but never deliver, then, I mean, that's where, like I said, I brought the sensibility side with the common sense side, and let's see if we can bring those two together and help people understand that sometimes your eyes don't lie and your ears do hear, you know. So don't let the media and anybody else tell you that what you see isn't what it is, because if you're still suffering, the people you elected are not making the change for your village. Maybe the village up the hill a little bit more is doing well, but your village isn't. And I don't know at what level you're at, but vote for your village, your
See,
community.
and that can be hard too, though. I agree with that, but there's a difficult side of that in respect that we have people that are only taking their village into consideration and not taking the whole state into consideration. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in this state in particular, we do have a significant divide between the rural and the metro. They're not being represented equally in legislature or with the governor's office. They're trying to even leave the state. In all honesty, a lot of them
Right.
are.
So that's
I mean,
a
a big
bad
portion of it.
example of where the village has complete control. One village has control, and they're not listening to any of the other villages. And so
Okay.
I'd
Yeah.
like to get to a point where we have villages that they may be very differing villages, but they can come to some kind of common ground so that when one decides to burn something up, it doesn't burn them all down. And right now they're all getting burned down.
Yeah, but is that village the majority?
Yeah.
That,
Well,
yeah.
population wise, yeah.
Okay.
If we're talking about like a Portland Metro versus Podunk, Oregon. No offense, Chery, I love you.
Hey, I've been to some places out there in Oregon that as a black man, I was very shocked that there was a city named White City. And when I was actually standing in it, I was like, holy shit, this is interesting. But that's a whole nother story. But
it's only 2 towns away from where I'm at. So.
Hey,
just kidding.
All I'm gonna say is, you know what? Oregon is a beautiful state.
Stay away from Portland, and yes, it is.
If you obey laws and you act like a sensible individual, in most places you will be fine. But there are those cities and towns where things are still a little bit backwards, and you typically want to just drive through and get gas before that city or after that city. And that's only common sense, because if you don't have friends in that city, why even bother stopping in it to do any type of major interaction anywhere, just for your own safety, just because the village, you never know what's going on in any particular villages. So, as far as what you guys are talking about, maybe Oregon is a bad place to make that type of analogy example. But in respect, I mean, it should be in a democracy majority rule. It just kind of messed up that the majority is in such a big location that they can dictate to all the smaller all the smaller counties to affect them to that degree. Maybe then, I don't know.
I don't know. I think with the idea, what I'm seeing now is that it's not even so much the villages. I think what has happened is we have representatives for the villages, and they're making decisions. And so, when we talk about the majority, I would really like to see pen to paper when we have these polls or these votes, and really understand, do all of the people agree with what the legislators are doing? And I do not think that they do. And so, unfortunately, we are in a situation where the villages probably are the majority of the people in the villages, but they decided to nominate one person for the village, and that one person has gone a little off the rails and is making all sorts of decisions and not necessarily taking into consideration what the people actually want. And we're seeing that with public comments left and right. When we've got bills that are being passed, from the masks to the menstrual dignity to, we've got this SB 762 with the wildfire map. There are public comments that are happening after those in charge have decided to do what they're going to do, and the public is coming back in storm against it.
And even worse than that, though, I think that to add to that, yes, that is absolutely all true. In addition to that, though, the people that are making these wild decisions, not necessarily legislature, they're coming from bureaucratic offices or positions, such as like the ODE or the OHA, where these people aren't elected. They're not held. They're not accountable to any of us. We didn't elect them. We didn't put them in office, but our governor
they're
did.
appointed.
And as an example, our Oregon Health Authority director has zero medical background, zero science background. He's been a banker, I believe, and an economist. Zero history in the medical field at all. And he's running the entire health authority for the state of Oregon. I mean, as an example.
Do you think that maybe at the village level, maybe by putting in little, I don't know what you would call it, regulations that require you have to have certain qualifications to be in certain positions to be able to run for this position, and also term limits. There shouldn't be career. The reason I say that is you have a lot of politicians that are in Congress that have been in position of
Career.
For 20 years.
Yeah,
Look,
they're all establishment. That's what the problem is, AG.
Yes, a lot of things has changed. Technology has changed, and a lot of them can't even use the technology that we have, but yet we're allowing them to regulate and make laws that affect how we move. So why not put term limits in so we can get some of this old baggage out and start evolving with the times? Because just like, you know, our electrical grid here in California, by I want to say 2035, they're no longer going to be selling any gas vehicles. We'll be buying them from you in Oregon.
No, because we can't make a decision on our own. Oregon needs to do whatever Washington and California are doing.
Yep, and if we're following you, Washington will follow suit.
Okay, well, so what's going to happen is the whole West Coast is not going to be able to charge shit. And guess what's going to happen? We're going to go back to using coal to heat our fireplaces, to keep our houses warm, and we're going to be barbecuing outside on wood stoves that we make out of bricks, and we're going to be using candles to light our to light our way
because
through our
our grid can't handle what we've got going on now, let alone when we add everything else.
Careful there, guys. You guys are talking too much sense there, because I mean,
look,
you might
rolling
actually
blackouts.
Get through to someone. You know, I don't know.
Rolling blackouts, but we want to add more electrical charging.
It makes zero sense.
I mean, hey, look, something's getting ready to happen. We just don't look. We must have faith in the Most High that He's got to be controlling what's happening, and there's alien technology that's going to come out of Area 51 that's going to miraculously give us a better electrical grid on the West Coast, and we're going to be the leading. You know, I don't know how they're going to do it, but in reality, we need to get people in office that, you know, are going to change with the time, because we're moving too fast in certain directions that aren't going to help us. They're going to hurt us.
And I think that realistically, and I'm probably going to get, you know, some heat for this, but I think that politically speaking, in our state especially, and I'm sure this may apply to California as well, that the pendulum has been swung so far one direction that we have to do something. And I don't mean this like it's not necessarily a left versus a right thing. I'm talking about one extreme versus another, just extremes on either end. We have to come and meet in the middle. But unfortunately, at least in Oregon, the majority of people in office that we have here have been in office for a long time. And they are, even on the Republican side, they're corrupt within one another. Like they're fighting one another within the party. And the same thing with the Democrats, they just go all hail, and then they bow down to whoever they decide is the person in charge. But they're not talking to one another. They're not working. There's no bipartisan efforts happening in our state right now. I'd be surprised if, at least on the Republican side, they're actually partisan working together. But the only way to kind
Yeah.
of change course, we have to kind of swing a little bit hard the other way, not too far though. We can't go too far. But just to bring some balance, some semblance of balance, because otherwise we're not going to be heard. Nobody's going to be heard. Their voices are going to be ignored. And our children will be, suffer for it, unfortunately.
Well,
I
I'll
have
be
one.
honest with you. That's why I'm on the fence, because we have been so far left for so long, progressive. And now, but there are some far right
Yes.
people.
You know what?
And it's just like, we don't want to go that way either. So it's just like, what is bringing it back? And so one of the things, like with the whole idea of, well, if we were to vote a Republican in, sounds great. Maybe you get some sense coming from the other side, but is anyone going to listen? Because right now, all the other legislation positions are primarily Democrat. And so are they going to dig their heels in and be like, oh, hell no, we've got a Republican governor and then nothing's going to get done anyway?
It'll depend on the
It all
election
depends.
overall.
It
Yeah,
does.
and I think that fortunately, for both Johnson and Drazen, they're both left enough. Even Drazen, let's be real here, she's not a hardcore Republican. She's not far right by any stretch of the imagination. Right. She's a lot more closer to the center than I would say Betsy is in terms of left versus right. I think Betsy leans a little bit more left than she does right. She's more like on this side, kind of easing in, and then here's Drazen. I think Drazen's a little closer to the center there, but either one would be a step up. There's that. I mean, anything would be an improvement.
My question that I have for y'all, maybe you might know, are any of these politicians that are coming into office, is their salary, is their net worth kind of average, or they're already millionaires? Because the question that I have is, how is a public servant, because we know their salaries, it's public information that they're not making millions of dollars, okay? But when they leave office, they're all millionaires.
I'm looking
at how does that work? You know what I'm saying? So for me, if you're a true servant of the people and you want real change, then when you leave office, you shouldn't be better off than the people around you, than your constituents, because then you're truly of the people, for the people. Because if you're representing the 2%, then you're not representing the whole. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, but we need to represent all.
Right, absolutely.
Drazen is,
and so I don't think that where you are financially is the deciding factor of whether you're the best person for the job.
It doesn't decide whether or not you're the best, but it does determine whether or not you're going to have the higher chance of winning. Because unfortunately, as we've all learned this last election, money is what will get you in the door. Money is what will help you get the votes. Not because you're buying them, but it's because you're able to have that money, you have the means to put your name all over the TV. Because as much as we would like to think that most people get their news from local or from the YouTube media or their friend, whatever, they're not. The majority of people still get their news and their updates from mainstream media. And if you don't have an in with the mainstream media or the money to go on mainstream media, you're screwed. That's just,
well, and I guess I wasn't thinking you are 100% right. I wasn't referring to that. I was referring to the idea that you didn't have to be, a blue collar person or below or wherever to be able to understand or be able to be a voice for them.
I think
you have to be the listen.
Right. And I think that, honestly, my personal opinion of the matter is that we should not have these career politicians. We should absolutely have term limits. And to be quite frank, I don't think that it's fair or right that it's money determining who runs and how much they're exposed. And realistically, that's what stacks the deck.
Or even where they live. I think that's one of the things that hopefully this pandemic brought in front of everybody is, guess what? Here we are. We're not in the same place, and none of us. And yet we can have a discussion right here, right now. And so this idea that all of these legislators, a majority of them live in Salem, it's like that's where the majority is. And it's just like, why? Why can't somebody who has a family that wants to have a legislative position, they can't leave their family 6 months out of the year?
No.
That's you want real people's voices, but you have it. This system is set up in such a way that it doesn't, like, anybody with kids. Oh, sorry, honey. See you for the next 6 months. You stay.
Right.
That's not feasible.
Mhm.
And then you add you compound that, and you take it and you add it to the fact that a lot of people honestly have no idea how to even run, what it involves, who to talk to, what to do. They don't even know what half these positions are. I mean,
I'm
there's so
still
many
learning.
people.
I had to go back and look up our branches again. It's been so long. How
Which is
pathetic
sad.
is that?
I mean, same. I mean, I knew what they were, but like I didn't really know like the full function, right? Like, I mean,
my eye opening was between the House bills and the Senate bills. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, okay, so the House are the district level, and then the Senate, it's the state level. And I'm like, oh, hold on a minute. You have all these district level people putting these bills through out of their district. And I'm like,
we
have
have
you really talked to all the other districts when you decided to push that through? No.
Well, and we have a trifecta here. I mean, it just makes it's just so bad. So bad. Like, it doesn't matter what the other side, one side can come up with a great idea and they will just knock it right down. Like,
well, and see, that's the
arrival.
issue. That is the issue that I have with the idea of thinking that, yes, would it be great to have a Republican office? Yes. But right now we're in a situation where whatever the Republicans bring up, it gets shot down just because you're a Republican for the most part. So we then going to switch the other way, that whatever the Democrats bring forward, it gets shot down? And that's happening now already.
Not. That's not,
and
that's
not going to work. It's not going to work.
Exactly.
Hey, so what if we just, for the amount of money that these political officials are leaving office making, what if we said to them, okay, check this out. We need y'all to figure out this bill, and nobody leaves until the bill is passed. Figure it out and come to an agreement.
That would require them to care what the people want, AG. Like, that would require these people to care what the people want. Like, the legislators will have to care.
And I bet you people will start to talk, and that we will have dialogue if we said, look, we're going to take a break. We're gone for 3 weeks. What do you mean? No. You got bills to pass. You're not leaving the building until you finish taking care of this, because the deadline is this time. So, okay, you've passed the deadline. Nobody goes home until it's done.
Well, I'll tell you, that is one of the reasons that Betsy has been like, there's a lot of things she said that's right up my alley. But one of the things that she said is, imagine that we forced there to be a bipartisan agreement before something was passed. And that means, guess what? For that to happen, people actually have to have discussions, and they're going to have to give a little on both sides to get it to pass. Well, that would be awesome.
If she's talking that way, she got my endorsement. I'm not even from that state. Not that it's important of an endorsement for her, but hey, Shit Talking Sunday, Betsy, you got my endorsement. If you even talking remotely about holding people accountable and saying, hey, look, it reminds me of that movie, A Bronx Tale. The bar scene where the bikers walked into the bar and he said, hey, man, we don't want your business, or you guys got to go, or something like that. And they said, man, what's the problem, man? We just want one drink. He goes, one drink? All right, you guys are respectable young men. Give them one drink. And they take the drink. They start messing up the bar. And the one dude, he walks over to the door, locks the door, and says, now y'all can't leave. And that's what needs to happen. Lock the door. Now y'all can't leave. Time is up. We're tired of the BS. Y'all are arguing over some
stupid shit.
We have some childish people in office that egos, if they're not stroked properly, they make sure that everybody has a bad day. And you know what is supposed to be done with children who throw tantrums? You put them in timeout, and you give them some discipline, and then guess what? When they come back to the table, they're more well behaved. But now we're allowing all these politicians out here to just run wild, spoiled, like their money isn't our money that we gave
Right.
them to do a job. So lock their butts into a room. It's not kidnapping because you're a public servant. Remember slavery, where back in the day, y'all locked some people in room and then cracked a whip and said, hey, get the job done. Well, hey, you're a public servant. Since you want to treat people like that, let's get back to the bare roots of how the United States was created and either do your job or what do they say? We the people can make you do it.
Forgotten about we the people, and that's the thing, they've forgotten whose checkbook it is too, because the idea that anyone's running around talking about, well, $5.5 million isn't that big of a deal, 13 million, really? Because I'd like to have 5.5 or 13 million dollars to make decisions with.
You know,
Right.
hey,
And be like, but when you're dealing with billions and trillions of dollars, and then all of these decisions that are getting made, that was the other thing. These carve outs that we have, we've got funds in this state, and the Menstrual Dignity Act was a carve out. There's so many carve outs that come out of the pool of money, and there's grants, and there's all these things, and there's no accountability. And so the idea that
The SOS is supposed to be doing that, by the way.
Oh, right. Yes. Right.
For
right.
Mia.
And we've seen
The
some
drone
audits
feeder.
come through. We've seen some audits come through that state that, oh, wow, after the last 20 years, with nothing has happened in education. We've had reform after reform, and they've all failed. And so what's the solution? Let's put more people in the Oregon Department of Education, because that's going to fix it.
no, you know what? It employs more people, and we get to spend more of the
Not
money.
the ones we need. We need actual educators in school. We don't need
And paras and all sorts of
bureaucrats.
things.
I do have a question. What's your guys' feeling, you ladies, on Joe Biden forgiving debt forgiveness on student loans? What was your feeling on that?
That's a hard one, buddy. That's a hard
I
one.
have
I'll let you go
once.
first.
I have multiple. So first
Okay.
of all, I don't think that the idea that all the people that have busted their butts and have actually paid off their own college loans, and this idea that everybody who didn't go to college, I'm one of them, now is responsible for paying off those that made a choice to go. The system is very broken. However, I say that, and at the same time, as broken as the system is, I don't think we wipe it out, but maybe we stop all interest and give them the rest of eternity to pay it back. But the idea of just forgiving it, I'm just not a fan of that. It's this whole generation of just like, oh, we'll just make it go away, or just give you money and make it go away. How does that solve anything? It doesn't fix the problem. And so, but I also know with everything that's going on, because I actually had reached out to a friend that was a teacher of mine, because my husband had sent me a little picture of, equality, and it was an equality thing, and it had to do with basically the people's student loans that got wiped off. They've got a huge advantage over everybody else. And guess who's at the bottom? Your blue collar worker who is now paying for it. And so, but from somebody who is busting their butt as an educator or whatever field you're in, and doesn't even feel like they're making a livable wage after they put all of the money that was required of them to put into for college. I don't know enough about it, but it sounds like tuition's out of control. It sounds, maybe Michelle can speak to this a little bit more, but all of the things that are out of control, we need more accountability there. And so wiping it clean, no, I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of that. But like I said, I would definitely be on board for something, either, no more accruing interest and have an extended period of time to pay it off.
Right. I'm kind of where Sherry's at, though, and this comes from somebody who actually does have student loans that I have paid as little by little, as much as I don't go out of my way to pay a lot of it, like all of it. I mean, I make payments and all those things, but I could, in theory, try and get that cleaned up and taken care of, but I don't think it's right for me to do that. It was my decision to go. It was my decision not to even finish getting my degree. And it was my decision to go to that 4-year university to taking courses for something that I didn't even know what I was going to do with that degree when I was done. And I think that's where we're at. I think we should be cognizant of tuition rates are astronomical. They are so high. There needs to be some kind of regulate. I don't know how that would work. I don't know how that would look like in the future. But there needs to be some kind of regulation. We're talking, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 and up a year. I mean, that's significant money. I think that we could definitely at least absorb the interest rates, or maybe reduce them down to virtually nothing. Maybe extend the periods for which they can pay it, or maybe like you mentioned blue collar workers, and I'm sorry, there's definitely something to be said about letting somebody scotch free that went to school for something stupid, or not stupid, but something that really isn't going to get them anywhere, in terms of a job when they're out of school. Let's say gender studies as an example. What are they going to do with that? I mean, honestly,
right now that might be very popular because there's a lot of transgender right now. So there's probably a lot of counselors and stuff like that. But now I hear you guys' point. Now let me ask you a question. So what about the students that were, and this is just my opinion, I don't want to be I'm not slandering anybody by saying this, but because I personally attended Kaplan College, I don't agree with how they treated me. So I'm not going to go too deep into, I'm not going to try to talk negative, but I will say that I was misled on the kind of revenue that I would be making coming out. And the student loan that I got from there, for me, I never even went with that, although I graduated top of my class in it and everything. But for me to pay on something that I was swindled on, that is now currently out of business, doesn't even do business, maybe those situations I could see being wiped out. And we're not talking, and on your guys' point, yeah, I get the 10 grand that you guys paid. But it's kind of like remember when COVID came out and employers were going, I'll give you $50 if you take a vaccination. Some people bit, not enough people bit. So they upped it to 100, and then it was 500, and then people did it. So what about the people that got it for the 50?
And then it was like a lottery.
I mean, it just keeps going back though. Like you're saying, like, it's like, okay, what about me? I mean, whatever. Right. But to your point though, about the university and like going into the school and, like we were just talking about, whatever happened to having that in the schools in your K through 12, you would have a mentor of sorts. At least I did.
Trade school.
In high school.
Yes. Trade school. We should have, kids should not graduate high school without having some type of way of making a living.
Or at least be able to know what jobs are out there, what they involve. There was a mentorship. There was things that were in place before that they no longer exist in the schools.
You know what's so sad?
Or all of them anyway.
If you're getting general assistance, there are community programs that you can go, offices that you can go to, and they will give you classes, help you do all these things that will get you prepared for work, when all they simply have to do is implement those same classes in the schools and require children to take them.
They used to.
Yes, but you have to remember, if everybody was the haves, then there would be no have-nots to take care of the haves. So you have to, it sounds really messed up, but the system is set up for people to fail if they don't want to dig hard and deep to try to be successful.
But isn't that why they keep trying to make socialism a thing? Because doesn't socialism fix that? Isn't that what the thought process is?
Who's going to work? If nobody wants to work, who's going to, just like, hey, look, the illegal aliens that come across the borders, I get that there may be some bad apples in the bunch, but there's bad apples in
Everywhere.
every bunch of every race you deal with. So I would like to say the majority of the ones that try to come over are trying to better their life. Are they doing it the right way? Absolutely not. But when they come here and we provide them jobs that only they are willing to do, because if we were to do them, the price of those goods that we want to consume would be so expensive because nobody's willing to work for their wages that they're willing to accept. So we're in a catch. We're damned if we do and damned if we don't. So I understand, but maybe we need to have a faster venting system and maybe allow people to just come over the border under a work thing and do quick background check. We are in a technologically advanced society now that we should be able to do background checks on individuals.
But that's not Mexico. Mexico's a whole different.
Yes, but when they come over here, if they're
I meant
in
just for the
their
background
system,
part, just the background check part is what I was referring to.
yeah,
It'd be
they
a lot
might.
more. It would take a little bit longer.
It might be a little harder because they might not have
maybe we could send all the people that hate this country so much across the border or a different border and keep the ones that want to be here, including those that are trying to come across illegally because they understand how significant it
Most
is
people,
to be
I would say, I would argue most people that come to the U.S. come here because they want a better life for themselves. Absolutely true. There are few bad apples, absolutely, but they're, like he said, they're everywhere. They're literally everywhere. Every color, every creed, doesn't matter. There's a bad apple somewhere. My understanding, though, is a lot of the, and I could be wrong, so I'm not like saying this is definitive. My understanding is that a lot of the people that object to the illegal immigration is not necessarily because of the taxes or the this or necessarily that there's the bad apples, but it's that when there are the bad apples, that because of the way that the laws are written, they cannot arrest them and hold them legally accountable, but they instead have to send them back to wherever they came from, and then it just, rinse, wash, repeat. I don't know if that's true. It's just what I've heard.
What do you mean send them from where they came from?
So, like, if somebody came from, say, Mexico, and let's say I come to America from Mexico, and I break a bunch of laws, and you find out I'm an illegal immigrant. There's no judicial process other than to detain you, and then they deport you. So it's just like a, So that is where a lot of the people that are more reserved on this subject, I think that's where they fall. Me personally, I think we should make it easier for them to come in, if nothing else, for it to be a temporary solution, and then they have to go through the whole process. In fact, our process actually isn't much more complicated than some other countries, but there's a lot. We don't require sponsors.
What about do we fingerprint them when we let them go?
I have no idea.
If we fingerprint them, I don't know if we do, if we don't, but if we do fingerprint them because we send them back because they committed a crime or something, or that they did something minor enough that we said, but major enough that we sent them back. Fingerprint everybody. You're here illegally, fingerprint everybody. So now we have we're starting a database. And if we deport you because you didn't obey our laws, then when you come back, now we can really figure it out. What do we do? I don't agree with the separating the parents and the children. That whole messed up thing, that's just crazy on many.
But see, and I agree with you. Hold on. I agree with you on that. But however, the parents that decide to make this choice with their children, they know what they're doing. And so this is one of those things where we want to pull on the heartstrings of people, because if the bad thing happened to the children, but it goes back to the adults making the decisions.
Okay. Oh, hey. I agree with you. I'm on your side. I'm on your side with that. But what about, have you ever lived in a third world country?
No,
I have not. I've been to them.
Okay. If and when you say you've been to them,
I've been to Mexico.
Okay. Tourist Mexico or
both.
really
Both.
in the, okay. So then you have seen what third world is like. I'm talking about, I lived in in the Orient where they didn't have running water, where you literally shit talking Sundays over an open hole in the ground and peed in your backyard and took a shower with a well pump that you pumped the water into a tub and took a scoop and scooped it onto you.
Mhm.
And that was the extent of running and
It's a lot
where
different.
I was, crime wasn't that bad, but in a lot of these countries, crime is so final when the discipline comes down that you're not going to have the kind of crime rate that we have, because things that should get slaps on the wrist are getting too much discipline, and things that should be really disciplined are getting a slap on the wrist. And the imbalance of sentences makes the constant battles between everybody what is crazy. But we getting off subject with that. So
You're right, though. I think I hear you where you come from. And I guess the other thing about it is it's not, it's the exceptions, I think, that are causing the problem, because we have no accountability.
Yes.
And so when we have adults bringing children in that are truly wanting a better life and to try to go about it the best way that they know how, I get that. I would want that for my own child. Where I have a problem is that we have so many issues with cartels and other things that are happening in child trafficking and all of this stuff that is happening from people that aren't even supposed to be in this country. Why can't we make people accountable? And so that's the problem. It's that we don't make the people accountable that are causing all the problems. And so that the people that sincerely want just a good life for their children and their family, right, we make it more complicated for them because of the exceptions to the rule,
And
because we have zero accountability.
It's actually really expensive.
Term limits.
Term limits solve all the things.
I agree with that, but there's another side of that. As this is the first year, I'm just over a year into the school board position that I was appointed to. I'll have to run in May, but there's no way in hell that I've got the knowledge of what a school board member does, right? Like, I need like a few years to get to where I want to be, knowing what I know. And so there's this whole idea that some of these positions take a while just to understand them. It's like I had a friend of mine ask me,
right? To get your bearings, to grab your bearings.
Yes,
yes.
To know what the hell I'm doing.
You know what?
Lack of training and lack of education.
Okay, I can solve that for you. You ready for this? So now you want to be a school board member, right? You want to learn a little bit about it. Okay. Well, if you're in a position where you're not the breadwinner, let's just say hypothetically, let's say you're in a position where you're not the breadwinner, or your household doesn't depend on your income, and you have the freedom to go
at all.
Okay. And you can go and be an intern for somebody so that you can shadow them. Now you can get the experience that you need to intelligently fill the position and immerse yourself. Yes, I agree.
And I guess that's the thing. Like, even with the school board position, I had been sitting in school board meetings for a couple of years before I ever got appointed. You speak.
Let me in her defense. Let me defend her for just a quick second here. Let me just defend her for a quick second. I just got contracted to help with communications in a district local to me. And I was speaking with one of the board members who I don't know very well. And they've been on the board for a significant amount of time. And today they told me that, after this many years, and I'm still learning every year, because things change so frequently in public education with policies, procedures, administration, etc., that you can know one year and it could be entirely different the next.
Right.
So that's the unfortunate part. So it doesn't matter how educated you are.
This is true.
It does and it doesn't. There are things that you need to, like the basics, the very fundamentals. That's one thing. But I mean, in terms of policies and stuff, that changes so often. It's hard to say.
You know what's so
No, it's
crazy
true.
is
And I guess that was the thing. Like one of the things I've seen being in that is that, you know, when I saw other elections that had come up, we would have people that ran for these school boards. They would do all their campaigning. They were in the meetings during that time and then they were gone. And to me, I've been in those meetings and I've sat through those meetings because I wasn't going anywhere. And I guess that's just the difference. So
By the way,
I want somebody who cares.
I want to do your campaign.
What campaign? Everyone keeps talking about politics. I'm like, no, it's funny. I told my husband the other day, I'm like,
for school board.
Okay.
Well, for any of them, I still think you should run for governor, but for school board.
you
That's
know
funny.
maybe
Well, I keep talking about politics. We keep talking about, I'm like, I'm not a politician. I'm like, I'm an advocate. And my husband said something very interesting to me the other day. He's like, politicians are supposed to be advocates.
absolutely.
Boom. That's a smart guy you got.
I know.
Well,
He still doesn't want me to be a
maybe somebody wants maybe you can endorse somebody and take their position that they leave if they win.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to Betsy the other day to potentially give her an endorsement, and unfortunately, I haven't done my due diligence as much as I would like to endorse her. I will most likely endorse somebody by October 18th because I don't have a problem.
You should really consider looking into her voting record.
Oh, I've got it all. That's what I was going through. But I will tell you on that note, I realized that she was a Democrat and, you know, for many years. And so her votes from 10 years ago versus her votes for 5 years ago, for me, I can understand maybe your thought process changing. It's understanding your why. Do you have any regret? I know the one thing she did say is the worst vote she did was for the cat tax. She said she shot herself in the foot on that one. And so somebody who can be accountable for the choices that they make and somebody who changes their mind, we change our mind. And that's the thing, like understanding what's behind the vote. What aren't we seeing? Because when I got on the school board, I know that there was a lot of things behind the podium that I didn't realize as much as I do now that I'm behind the table. And so I know that there's a lot more that happens. And so that's why I say I haven't done my due diligence yet. I'm not sure, but we will see. So
well, for me,
this has been interesting and fun.
Betsy, if you want to hit me up, AG the Dad at Shit Talking Sundays, I am all for the fact that you're talking limits. So if you want my endorsement, hey, you know, email me. We could work something out. I might even be down to even promote you a little harder on my podcast. You know, might even hang up a little something up here that, you know, for you. But reach out, AG the Dad, Shit Talking Sundays, because every day is Shit Talking Sundays. I know we ran a little bit longer than we talked about, and this subject we could talk for hours and hours and hours. And I do want you back on the show. If we could work out a way for you to be on here regularly, that would be great. Even if we have to maybe adjust the recording time. Yes, ma'am, you, because I need sensible and common sense. You know, those two are like two peas in a pod. Or we need sensibly radical. You know,
radical sense. Radical sense.
I'm gonna give each one of you a closing, whatever you want to say, and let's talk about the governor's race. You know, you can give your 2 cents on how you feel and what you think it should be, and as our guest, we're gonna let you go first. Common sense, radical.
Oh shit, the pants. All right. Well,
because every day is Shit Talking Sundays.
With the gubernatorial race, again, anybody but Tina Kotek in the state of Oregon, anybody but Tina Kotek. I swear, if she wins, I'm moving, and so will many others. It's going to be a hard one. I suggest that people, whoever's listening from Oregon, do your homework, and don't do your homework with the mainstream media. Do like your actual homework. Do the research. Reach out to people that are doing the research if you don't know where to look, so you can do it yourself. If I've learned in the last 2 years, never trust what anybody else tells you. You should always do it yourself and look at it yourself, because you might be listening to somebody else's biased opinion, and that may not go along with what you believe and what you feel. And if it doesn't support kids and standing up for kids, then screw them. They don't go. They fail.
So can I squeeze you down just a little bit more to not just anybody but Tina, but do you want to give your you know what, if I have to choose one, AG the dad,
I would do a
I'm
write-in
leaning
right now.
towards- Huh?
I would waste my vote on a write-in because I still have yet to have a conversation with either one of those women, with the other two.
Okay.
And I demand
And that is
a
why I
conversation with
respect
both of them.
this woman.
Okay.
That is why I respect this woman, because that's how I am. As much as I have heard a lot, I've listened to their debate, I've done a little research, and my heart is actually leaning towards Betsy, but I cannot make that decision until I've done my due diligence and having some information about Drazen that I just don't have. The reality of it is I don't know that she is a strong enough voice. I don't know that she has this girl has fight in her. I don't know that I've seen that from Drazen. She seems a little soft, and she's been in office. And so I'm
not for long,
that's
not
just
for as
kind
long
of,
anyway.
and the conversations, right. And the conversations I've had with Betsy, I get the whole idea of the career thing, but she's no nonsense. She says it like it is. And so that's the going back and looking at the voting records and stuff, just to kind of see where has she been and where is she now.
Right.
Before I make a decision.
Exactly.
So there's going to be a lot more conversations. I'm excited. There's a lot of other topics that I love to talk common sense radical about.
Okay.
So I would love to do this again.
Anytime.
You had something else you wanted to say?
Go ahead.
Oh,
yes.
No. I can talk about later. We can talk later.
Okay. Well, hey, I want to thank both of y'all for coming on the show. Shit Talking with Sensible Chery.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, anytime, you're more than welcome. Hopefully you come often, because nothing more that I would like as AG to the dad is to have you come often. Look, little joke. Anyway.
One last thing.
Oh, yes.
One last thing. We are taking a break for Labor Day, Monday. So.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get that?
That's next week, right?
No. Yes. So we will have a day off for Labor Day. And then in the future, we'll have enough things recorded that we'll never have a break.
Yeah, well, we may still, even though we're taking the day off, we still may shoot between now and then just to give y'all a little sub, because you never know what comes out on day to day. Because, hey, a 17-year-old kid could decide that he's going to run for governor, and we can all put our endorsement behind him, and truly he'd be for the people. He could be an emancipated look.
I'm telling you, my kid right now, my 10-year-old would do better than Tina.
Look, let me tell you, in this crazy world right now, I think to be a governor, you have to be 35, right? It doesn't matter. And let me tell you why it doesn't matter. Because if a person in this country could hold us accountable to make us agree with their political or sexual gender, then if we have to agree that somebody identifies as a certain gender, then if a 17-year-old wants to identify as a 35-year-old so that he could run for governor, who are we to tell him any different? Because what's good enough for one is good enough for all. So you can't discriminate about anything. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, and I'm not bashing on somebody who does identify as transgender or anything like that. I'm just saying, when we open up that door, you gotta allow people who identify anyway. Because if I decide tomorrow I want to identify as an 18-year-old, you're gonna respect it, because I know on my next birthday I'm 21, and everybody's gonna count the candles.
You should just identify that your loans are paid off.
Hey, and
your mortgage is paid.
Hey, you know what? So that's where the problem gets. But hey, we went way over, and I don't get paid by the dollar or by the minute. I get paid by all the love and hugs and kisses and the shares. So if you haven't hit that share button, that like button, that notification button, you are a shit talking non-fan. Thank you, shit talking fans out there. Thank you, Common Sense Radical. Thank you, Sensible Chery. Until next week, I am AG the Dad. This is Shit Talking with Sensible Chery, and we are UT out.
Deuces.
Sunday morning drama is calling up my mama.
Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama. Calling up my mama. Sunday morning drama. Sunday morning drama.